The Child in the Ruins. The desert was silent after the battle. Smoke rose from the broken machines, and the air smelled like fire and dust. Captain Ryan Hale walked carefully between the ruins, his boots sinking into the hot sand. The war had ended here only hours ago, but the silence felt wrong, like something was still watching. He kept his weapon close and scanned the wreckage of what used to be an alien village. The buildings were torn apart, metal pieces twisted like paper. There were no signs of life, only ashes and shadows. Ryan was about to turn back when he heard something. A soft sound, almost like a whisper. He froze. There it was again, a small cry. Not mechanical, not human. He followed the sound, stepping over broken stone and burnt glass until he reached a half-destroyed house. Inside, the light from the setting suns fell through a cracked roof. Under the beam of light stood a little figure. She was small, maybe 6 or 7 years old, with blue skin that shimmered faintly. Her hair was long and pale, braided down her back, dusty and tangled. Her large eyes reflected both fear and sadness. She was shaking, her small hands clutching the edge of her torn shirt. Ryan slowly lowered his weapon. He didn't want to scare her. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly. "I'm not here to hurt you." The little alien girl didn't move. She only stared at him, as if trying to decide if he was real. Then, in a voice barely louder than a breath, she whispered, "Will you be my father?" Ryan froze. For a moment he thought he had imagined it. The words hit him harder than any explosion. He saw her eyes, full of loss, fear, and a hope so fragile it made his heart ache. He knelt down slowly, trying to meet her gaze. "Where are your parents?" he asked gently. She didn't answer. She looked around at the ruins, then down at the sand. A single tear fell onto the ground, and understood. He took a slow breath. "You're safe now," he said, though even he wasn't sure if that was true. Suddenly, a loud metallic noise echoed from outside. The sound of engines. Ryan turned quickly toward the door. Through the cracks in the wall, he saw shadows moving, drones scanning the area. Red lights cut through the dust. He whispered, "Stay down." The girl crouched behind a broken crate as Ryan readied his rifle. The ground trembled slightly as the drones passed overhead. Their voices were cold and sharp. "Searching for life forms. Alien target detected." Ryan's heart raced. They weren't looking for him. They were looking for her. He turned toward the girl, who was watching him with wide, terrified eyes. He gave her a small nod. "Don't move," he said quietly. "I'll protect you." The drones hovered closer, their lights flashing over the ruins. Ryan gripped his weapon tighter, sweat running down his neck. In that moment, he knew this was no longer just a mission. It was a promise, one he didn't fully understand yet, but one he couldn't walk away from. The desert wind blew through the ruins, carrying the faint echo of the girl's words again. "Will you be my father?" Ryan whispered under his breath. "I guess I already am." The chase through fire. The air turned heavy with the sound of engines. The ground shook slightly, and dust rose in thin spirals as Ryan pressed his back against the cracked wall. Through the gaps in the ruins, red scanner lights swept across the wreckage. The machines were close. Too close. The little alien girl crouched behind him, her small fingers gripping the torn edge of his jacket. Ryan raised his hand silently, signaling her not to move or breathe. Her eyes were wide, glowing faintly in the dim light. Then, a sharp, metallic click broke the silence. One of the drones turned its sensor toward them. A red beam cut through the smoke, landing on Ryan's shoulder. "Run!" he shouted. The girl gasped as Ryan grabbed her hand and pulled her out into the open. Laser fire exploded behind them, burning the sand and stone. The shockwaves kicked up dust, covering the sky in orange haze. They ran across the ruins, jumping over fallen beams and shattered glass. Ryan fired backward with his rifle, hitting one of the drones. It burst into flames, crashing into the sand with a screech. But there were more. 3, maybe 4. Their voices echoed in cold unison. Target located. Capture protocol active. A plasma bolt hit the ground near Ryan's feet, throwing both of them forward. He landed hard, his armor scraping against a metal pipe. The girl cried out softly, but tried to stand again. Ryan quickly pushed her behind a wall. Stay low, keep moving when I say, he ordered, his voice calm but fast. She nodded, tears mixing with the dust on her face. Her braid was half undone, fluttering in the hot wind. Ryan took a breath, looked around, and spotted a half-buried transport vehicle ahead. Its cockpit smashed but hull mostly intact. That could be their only shelter. Over there, he said, pointing. They sprinted together again as more shots followed. The ruins burned in, red light. Every explosion threw waves of heat around them. Ryan could feel his armor getting heavier, his breath shorter. But he couldn't stop. Not with her beside him. They reached the transport wreck. Ryan kicked the hatch open and pulled her inside. He slammed the door shut just as another blast hit the outside. The walls shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Inside the wreck, it was dark, quiet, and hot. Ryan leaned against the wall, catching his breath. The girl looked at him, scared, but trusting. Are they gone? She whispered. Not yet, he said, checking the window slit. But we bought some time. The hum of the drones faded slightly. Ryan reached into his pouch and pulled out a small device, a signal jammer. He turned it on, and the air filled with a faint static buzz. Okay, he muttered. That'll block their sensors for a few minutes. The girl sat quietly beside him, her knees pulled close to her chest. Why? Why they want me? She asked softly. Ryan looked at her. I was hoping you could tell me. She hesitated, looking down. They say I carry something inside. Something they made. My parents tried to hide me. Ryan's eyes narrowed. So they're not after you. They're after what's inside you. The realization hit him like a punch. The invaders weren't just killing. They were hunting for her. He glanced at her trembling hands, then out at the burning desert. The sound of engines grew faint in the distance, but he knew they'd return soon. He looked back at her and said, Then we have to move before they find us again. The girl nodded slowly. Her small voice barely carried through the silence. Will you still protect me, Father? Ryan's heart tightened. He didn't answer. He just reached out and took her hand. Outside, the desert burned red beneath the twin suns. The chase was far from over, the signal of hope. The world outside was quiet again, but it wasn't peace. It was the kind of silence that hides danger. Ryan sat inside the broken transport ship, his back against the wall, his rifle across his knees. The faint smell of burnt metal filled the air. The little alien girl, Elena, sat a few feet away, hugging her knees. Her eyes glowed faintly in the half-darkness. The light came not from the suns, but from her. It was gentle, like moonlight. Ryan finally spoke, breaking the heavy silence. You said they made something inside you. What did you mean? Elena looked up slowly. My mother said, they took light from the stars and put it inside me. She said it can wake sleeping worlds. Ryan frowned. You mean some kind of power source? Elena shook her head softly. No, it's life. The drones call it Seed of Genesis. It can heal dead planets. They wanted it for war, Ryan leaned forward, trying to understand. A weapon that could rebuild life? He had heard rumors during the war, stories of alien experiments, forbidden technologies. But now one was sitting right in front of him. A child. He looked down at the broken communicator on his wrist. Static. No connection. The desert had cut off all signals. He needed to reach command, or no one would ever know she existed. He stood up and searched the wreck for anything useful. Inside an old control panel, he found a power cell, cracked but usable. He started connecting wires, his movements quick but steady. "What are you doing?" Elena asked softly. "Trying to call for help," Ryan said. "But we'll need a signal tower. This ship's transmitter is dead." She tilted her head. "There is a tall tower east of here. I saw lights there before the soldiers came." Ryan paused, looking at her. "You remember where it is?" Elena nodded. "It's near the Red Rocks. 2 suns touch there at evening." That was hope. Small, but real. Ryan checked his ammo, then the horizon through a narrow crack in the hull. The heat outside shimmered like water. The sun was already sliding lower, turning the sand to gold. He turned back to Elena. "We move when it gets dark. It'll be cooler then. Can you walk?" She nodded again, determined this time. For a moment neither spoke. Only the sound of wind filled the silence. Then Elena whispered, "You could leave me. They won't follow humans if I stay." Ryan stopped what he was doing. His voice turned firm, but gentle. "Kid, I've seen a lot of things in war, but I don't leave people behind. Not you. Not anyone." Her small eyes shimmered. She didn't say thank you. She just smiled. The first real smile since he found her. Ryan managed to restore partial power to the ship. Lights flickered weakly, and a faint signal blinked on his wrist display. Static crackled, but a voice tried to come through. "Captain Hale, report. Status." He straightened quickly. "Command, this is Hale. I've got a survivor. Alien child. She's special. Need extraction coordinates. Over." The signal hissed, breaking apart in the static. Then a cold, robotic voice replaced it. "Unauthorized transmission detected. Locking source." Ryan's blood went cold. The enemy had traced the signal. He turned toward Elena. "We've been found." Outside, a red glow appeared in the sky. Ships, descending fast. Ryan grabbed his pack, slung his rifle, and reached for her hand. "Time to move now." As they ran out into the fading sunlight, the sky burned with fire again. But this time, Ryan wasn't running from war. He was running to keep a promise. Somewhere out there, under the twin suns, a signal of hope was waiting. The enemy at the door. The desert night had fallen fast. The twin suns sank below the red mountains, leaving a faint glow that shimmered like dying embers. The cold crept in quickly, replacing the burning heat of the day. Ryan and Elena moved quietly through the wasteland. Every sound felt louder in the dark. The crunch of sand under boots, the low hum of wind sliding across the dunes. The girl's small hand stayed tightly in his. They finally reached an old communications outpost, a crooked tower standing alone like a ghost. Its lights flickered weakly, half broken from the war. Ryan's heart lifted just a little. "If this thing still works, we can send a signal before dawn," he said. He pushed open the metal door. It groaned in protest. Inside, the room was filled with sand and shadows. Broken screens glowed faintly blue. Ryan set his rifle down and started checking the power grid. Elena sat near the wall, rubbing her cold hands together. Her eyes wandered over the strange human machines. "Did humans build this?" she asked softly. Ryan nodded. "Yeah, long ago, before the war reached this planet." She tilted her head. "Then, Why did you come back?" He looked at her for a long moment. "To fix what we broke." She smiled faintly, not fully understanding, but comforted by his voice. Ryan powered up the main console. The tower lights flickered on, sending a faint blue pulse into the night sky. He exhaled in relief. "It's working," he whispered. But outside, far away, something answered the pulse. A distant echo, a mechanical signal, not human. Ryan's eyes widened. He froze, then quickly shut the console off. "No, no, no," he muttered under his breath. He stepped to the window slit and looked out. On the horizon, red lights were rising, fast, in formation. He knew that pattern. Mercenary dropships. He turned sharply toward Elena. "They found us." Her eyes filled with fear. "The bad ones?" "Yeah, and they're not here to talk." Ryan grabbed his rifle and ran to the entrance, sealing the door with metal bars. He handed Elena a small flashlight. "Go to the back room and stay low. Don't come out unless I say so. Understand?" She hesitated. "But you'll be alone." He smiled, trying to hide his fear. "I'm a soldier, kid. I've been alone most of my life. Go." She ran to the back as the ground began to tremble. Outside, engines roared and sandstorm winds rose, swirling around the tower. A beam of red light cut through the darkness, scanning the ground. Ryan crouched behind a console, aiming through a crack. The first group of armored figures landed, tall alien mercenaries in black suits, their masks glowing red. Their voices were deep and cold. "Retrieve the child. The human is expendable." Ryan gritted his teeth. "Over my dead body," he whispered. The door exploded inward with a blast of plasma. He rolled behind cover as fire and dust filled the room. Bullets tore through metal. He fired back. 1, 2, 3 shots, each echoing through the night. Sparks danced like fireflies in the dark. He hit one merc in the shoulder. The alien fell, roaring in pain. But more followed, storming the room. Ryan moved like a machine, calm, fast, precise. He used every shadow, every bit of cover. Yet he knew he couldn't hold them for long. Then, from behind him, a faint glow began to rise, blue and pure. Elena had come out of hiding. Her fear was gone. Her hands were glowing, soft and bright, like starlight. The mercenaries froze, blinded by the sudden light. Ryan turned, eyes wide. "Elena, no!" But it was too late. The light pulsed outward like a heartbeat. For a moment everything stopped. The wind, the sound, even the flames. The mercenaries stumbled back, their armor sparking. The tower shook as the light burst upward through the roof, slicing the night sky like lightning. Ryan stared at her, this small, fragile child holding a power no human could understand. And in that silent, glowing storm he realized she wasn't just a child he had to protect. She was something far greater, something that could change everything. The journey to the human outpost. The world was still glowing blue when the battle ended. The sand outside the old tower shimmered with faint light, like tiny stars had fallen from the sky. The mercenaries were gone. Some fled. Others lay still, their weapons melted from the strange burst of energy. Ryan stood in silence, breathing hard. Smoke curled from his armor, and his rifle hung loose in his hand. He turned toward Elena. She stood in the middle of the room, her hands still faintly glowing. Her eyes looked distant, as if she didn't understand what had just happened. He stepped closer and spoke gently. "It's over. You're safe now." The light faded slowly from her skin. She looked up at him, scared. "I didn't mean to hurt them. I just didn't want them to take you away." Ryan knelt beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "You saved both of us," he said softly. "Don't ever be sorry for that." She gave a small nod, but her eyes stayed sad. Outside, the night had grown cold. Ryan looked toward the horizon. Faint lights blinked far away. "That's the human outpost," he said. "If we make it there, Command can help us. Maybe even protect you." He gathered what supplies he could. One half-full water pack, a cracked flare, and a small energy cell. Not much. He knew the journey through the desert would be long and dangerous. Before leaving, Elena looked back at the tower. "Do you think the stars will forgive me?" she whispered. Ryan paused at the door. "If they don't," he said, "then they don't deserve you." They began walking across the sand as dawn started to rise. The sky turned gold and pink, the heat returning with every step. The desert stretched endlessly, waves of dunes and old war debris scattered everywhere. For hours they walked in silence. Ryan's armor creaked with every move, his steps heavy. Elena followed beside him, quiet but determined. Sometimes she would hum softly, a tune that sounded like wind through glass. It was strange, Ryan thought. That sound made the war seem far away. After a while, Elena broke the silence. "You said you fight for peace," she said. "Does peace mean no one fights?" Ryan smiled faintly. "No. Peace means fighting so that others don't have to." She thought about that for a long time, then nodded slowly. "Then I think you already brought peace to me." Her words hit him deeper than he expected. He looked down at her. Small, fragile, yet somehow stronger than anyone he'd ever met. As the suns rose higher, they stopped near a canyon to rest. Ryan checked his scanner. The signal from the outpost was stronger now, maybe 10 miles away. Relief washed over him. "We're close," he said. But then he noticed something else. A shadow moving in the distance. At first it looked like a cloud, but then it shifted against the wind. Elena saw it too. "They're coming again?" Ryan focused his scope. Not drones this time. Smaller, faster ships, gliding low across the dunes. Scouts. He cursed under his breath. "They're searching. We need to move fast." Elena hesitated. "You're tired." He looked at her, sweat running down his face, armor dented and dusty. "Doesn't matter," he said. "You see that ridge? Once we're past it, the outpost will spot us. We just need to keep moving." She nodded and took his hand again. Her touch felt warm. Too warm. When he looked at her closely, her eyes were glowing faintly again, and the sand under her feet sparkled slightly. Ryan frowned. "Elena, are you doing that?" She looked down, confused. "I don't know. It happens when I'm scared." Ryan's heart sank. The glow would make them easier to track, but he couldn't tell her to stop. She didn't even understand how. He tightened his grip. "Then I'll just have to move faster than their scanners." They started climbing the dune, their silhouettes long against the rising suns. Behind them, the desert wind picked up, carrying the sound of engines. The chase wasn't over. But this time, Ryan wasn't just running from danger. He was running toward something, toward hope, toward safety, and maybe toward the beginning of something like family. The last stand. The suns were setting again when they finally saw the outpost. It stood like a metal scar on the edge of the desert, half buried, broken towers reaching toward the sky, antennas bent and rusted. For Ryan and Elena, it looked like salvation. But hope came too late. Behind them, engines roared, sharp, angry, and close. Black ships were cutting through the clouds of dust, chasing hard. Red lights flashed across the dunes like burning eyes. Ryan's heart pounded. He lifted his rifle and turned to Elena. "Run to that gate," he said firmly. Don't stop, no matter what happens. Do you understand? She stared at him, eyes wide and frightened. But I can't leave you. He forced a smile. I'm right behind you, kid. Go. Elena ran, small feet kicking up sand as she sprinted toward the metal walls. Ryan turned and fired. Blue plasma bolts streaked across the sky, tearing through the air. He ducked, rolled, and returned fire, his shots precise and cold. 2 drones exploded mid-flight. One crashed so close the heat burned his armor. Command! This is Captain Hale, he shouted into his comm. I'm at Outpost 47. I need immediate evac. Static. Only static. The invader's voice echoed through the wind. Surrender the child. You will be spared. Ryan laughed bitterly. Yeah, I've heard that before. He planted his feet in the sand, setting his last 3 grenades around the ridge. His hands were trembling, not from fear, from exhaustion. But he couldn't stop now. He looked toward the outpost. Elena had reached the gate but couldn't open it. She turned and shouted, her voice breaking. They're coming! Ryan's heart twisted. He wanted to run to her, to protect her. But if he left this line, they'd both die. He reloaded his rifle and whispered to himself, one last fight. The ships drew closer, hovering low, sand whipping around them. Dozens of Amun, red figures jumped out, mercenaries, cold and silent. Their red visors gleamed like fire. Ryan waited until they were close, then pressed the detonator. The desert erupted in a wall of flame. The shockwave sent heat and smoke rolling across the dunes. Several mercs fell, screaming, their armor melting. Ryan used the chaos to move, fast, like a shadow. He fired from behind wreckage, hit 2, 3, maybe 4, but there were too many. A plasma bolt struck his shoulder, spinning him sideways. He fell to one knee, panting. His vision blurred. The pain was sharp, deep. He tried to stand again, and saw Elena running toward him. No! He shouted. Stay back! But she didn't listen. Her small hands glowed again, bright blue, burning brighter with every step. She stopped beside him and lifted her arms toward the sky. He air-changed. The ground trembled. A soft hum rose from the sand, then turned into a roar. The mercenaries stopped firing. Their scanners went wild. Blue light burst outward from Elena, spreading like waves through the air. It hit the soldiers and their ships, freezing them mid-motion. The energy wrapped around Ryan too, warm and pulsing like a heartbeat. He looked at her, this child who had no weapon, no armor, and yet was saving them both. The light faded slowly, leaving silence. The ships were gone. The dunes were smooth again. Elena fell to her knees, breathing hard, her glow fading. Ryan caught her before she hit the ground. Hey, easy, he said softly. You did it. You saved us. Her voice was weak. Are we safe now? Ryan smiled faintly. Yeah, kid, for now. In the distance, a new sound grew, deep and heavy. Human ships. Reinforcements. Ryan looked up at the sky. His vision was dimming, his body giving up. But he didn't care. They'd made it. She was safe. He whispered, Told you I wouldn't walk away. Elena's small hand rested on his chest. Don't leave me, Father, she whispered. He wanted to answer, but the light around him turned white, blinding. He could hear voices shouting, engines roaring, and then everything went silent. The dawn and the promise. Light returned slowly. The first rays of morning stretched across the desert, painting the sand in gold and pink. The battlefield from last night now lay quiet. No smoke, no fire, only silence and wind. Elena blinked, her small hands brushing the sand beside her. The air was cool and clean. The ships that hunted them were gone, melted into strange blue glass where her light had touched them. She turned and saw Ryan lying still a few feet away. His armor was cracked, covered in dust. His helmet was off, and his face looked pale, peaceful, almost asleep.
"Father,"
she whispered, crawling to him. She placed her glowing fingers on his chest. His heartbeat was weak, but still there. Relief filled her eyes. In the distance, engines roared. Not enemy ships this time, but human ones. Grey dropships with the Earth insignia descended slowly, kicking up waves of dust. Soldiers poured out, weapons raised, scanning the area. A medic rushed forward. "We've got a survivor," he shouted. Others followed, surrounding the scene. They stared in shock at Elena, her glowing skin, her calm eyes, her hand clutching the broken soldier's armor. The commander stepped closer, his voice low and confused. "What is that?" Ryan stirred faintly, forcing his eyes open. His voice came out rough but steady. "She's not a thing. She's a child. And she's with me." The commander looked stunned. "Sir, that's an alien." Ryan managed a weak smile. "Not anymore." He coughed, his strength fading again. Elena gripped his hand tightly. "Don't leave me," she whispered. Ryan looked at her with soft eyes. "I won't. I told you. I don't walk away." He reached out, brushed her braid with one trembling hand, then closed his eyes. His breathing slowed, but his hand stayed in hers. The medics worked fast, stabilizing him, connecting cables, calling for the evac. Elena didn't move. She just kept holding his hand as they lifted him onto a stretcher. As the dropship engines roared to life, she looked up at the commander. Her voice was small, but clear. "Please don't take me away from him." The commander hesitated, then nodded. "You stay with him. That's an order." They boarded the ship together. Through the open hatch, the rising suns shone over the endless dunes. The desert that once burned with war now glittered with quiet light, Elena's light. Hours later, inside the medical bay, Ryan finally opened his eyes. His vision was blurry, but the first thing he saw was her face, the same small alien girl who had once asked a question that changed everything. She smiled, tears shining in her glowing eyes. "You came back." He gave a weak laugh. "Guess I'm hard to get rid of." Outside the window, space stretched like an ocean, endless and silent. Elena leaned against his arm, resting her head gently. Ryan looked at her and said softly, "When this war ends, you'll see worlds beyond this one. You'll be free, Elena." She looked up at him. "And you?" He smiled. "I'll make sure there's a place for you. Somewhere safe. Somewhere called home." The ship flew higher, breaking through the clouds. The planet below grew smaller, and the light of dawn reflected off the metal wings. Elena closed her eyes, whispering a promise only he could hear. "You'll never be alone again, Father." Ryan looked out into the stars, his heart heavy but full, because even after all the loss, pain and fire, he had found something he thought the war had taken forever: hope. The stars outside shimmered like they were listening, and somewhere deep in the black of space, a new beginning was waiting. Not for soldiers or conquerors, but for a man and a child who refused to give up on each other. The end, but not the last story.